Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Yankee Chatter, the inaugural pilot episode of our first podcast. My name is Greg Andriano, and
My name's Brad McCormick.
just to give a quick introduction of ourselves, I'm a huge Yankee fan myself, born and raised. Currently live in Orlando area, and I write for a blog called the Pinstripe Chronicle. I actually write and run it. It's all, pure fun, not my day job, but it's something I am very passionate about, always have been, and, Brad will tell you. Brad and I go way back. We went to high school together, played Little League together. He's still up in New York, and I'll let him talk a little bit about himself.
Yeah, so like I said, my name's Brad, and I'm upstate New York. I'm still here, still dealing with the cold weather right now, and I didn't make the smart move to move down to Orlando like Greg over there. But we go way back. Always been a huge Yankee fan, and ever since even high school, we've been doing these kind of things, debating, talking about baseball, acting like we know more than GMs, which we don't, but we still pretend we do.
It's
And
nice to think
right, and sometimes they should take our ideas, but. So this is the first time we actually get on film. I've done a little bit of things with the Bigger and Badder Sports Show, with football and whatnot, with some other friends of mine. So you probably haven't seen me, but I can pretend that people have.
Well, we can put the link in the profile.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll plug them.
But I like to think myself as more of an expert at baseball than any other sport. So I'm excited to do this. Can't wait to get this going.
Well, this is exciting. As Brad said, this is our first episode. We've been trying to figure out how to do this for a while now, and lots happened in the off season so far. We're only a month away from spring training, pitchers and catchers report. I think a month
Pitchers
from
and
today.
catchers, yep.
Yep. So before we get into any of the details so far, like I said, I do the Pinstripe Chronicle. It's an online blog. I'll put the website in the comments below. But I'm very involved in social media. You can find us on Facebook at TPC Yankees blog, on Instagram, the Pinstripe Chronicle, but mostly I'm on Twitter, and you can find me at TPC Yankees blog, or you just search the Pinstripe Chronicle. That's probably where I'll be most of the time. Probably shake things up a little bit when we get more involved in this, but that's the best way to find me.
Yeah, and if you really want to listen to what I have to say about anything, I'm at Brad or Chatter one on Twitter. So keep it up. Keep listening. I'm posting more and more every day as I can. Now that we have a platform and offer my opinions, because there are a lot of crazy opinions out there on Twitter, and I think I can be one of the people that bring it down to where it should be, back to reality.
I know a lot of people try to do that on there, but sheesh. The last week or so with all this stuff coming out about Machado, and we'll get into more of that later. It's just crazy. All the people just jumping ship or jumping to conclusions on now the Yankees are going to be a terrible team because they're not going to sign this one person, and we don't even know if he's not going to be with the Yankees this year. He could still surprise everyone and sign, or Cashman could do something crazy. We don't know, but Twitter is a crazy place. There's a lot of weirdos out there.
It's people like that make people hate Yankee fans, because we have to spoil brats that no matter how much we have, we want more, and if we don't get it, we're going to throw a fit. And that's what I think about when I see these people.
Being a Yankee fan for as long as we have, you can probably pretty much assume that, Yankees are always going to be in on the big free agents, always, in some capacity. If they're not doing their due diligence.
Right.
But, when we've been spoiled, we have been. We've gotten the Yankees have signed some big name players, and some big money contracts. It's we're used to it. So when it doesn't happen, people throw a fit. But we'd like to try and put a little bit in perspective. That's kind of our goal here. We don't want to run wild with one thing and have everyone kind of attack us. It's not our thing. We want to try and put it out there the best way we can to kind of explain it to people that don't really follow it as closely as we do, or just try and look at it in a positive light.
Excellent. We're here to get excited, right?
Yes.
And share positive excitement about the team. We're in a position where we can do that pretty much every year, so we can't really get too upset about a couple things that don't go our way. So
Absolutely.
that's how I feel about it.
It's a good way to look at it, Brad. And you know, let's just dive into it then. I guess we kind of
let's get into it.
Kind of got a good start. So
I don't think people want to hear about us anymore. So,
well, as we all know, the Yankees did not win the World Series in 2018. They got knocked out in the first round. Well, they won the wild card
second
game.
Second round.
To the Red Sox. Very disappointing. But since the postseason has ended, they've been pretty active. They re-signed a couple key players, a couple key veterans from last season. They went right after, I think the day after the World Series or something, they re-signed Brett Gardner to a one-year deal, and then they re-signed CC Sabathia to a one-year deal, which, by the way, this will be CC's, he's formally announced that it will be his final season.
Right.
So expect some bells and whistles along the way. CC's been in the league for a very long time. A lot of people respect him. He's a good team leader. He's a very good pitcher, personality, not pitcher, to have in the clubhouse. A lot of guys look up to him, as I'm sure you can attest to, Brad. So I think signing those two guys are pretty decent moves for depth purposes only.
Well, that's what they had to do. At the end of the year, we talked about what are we going to do with Gardner and Sabathia. These are not lifelong Yankees. Gardner is, but Sabathia has been there since he was one of the last ones there since the last World Series. And
Both of these guys, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and there's such huge presences in the clubhouse. So it's like, what are they going to do with them? And I think they did the perfect moves. Gardner took less money. It basically, they redid the deal so he could stay on as a Yankee, probably retire as a Yankee, but at a team-friendly contract. Mm-hmm. And CeCe, he's just huge. He's even when they hosted Machado, he was there to host him. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that James Paxton said he's only heard from a couple of his teammates so far because it's still early. And CeCe's the first guy that reached out to him the very next day that he got traded. So welcome to the Yankees. He's just that kind of guy. So I think keeping him on is huge. I don't know how many starts he's going to make this year because of his issue. He's always got knee issues. Now he's got a heart issue. But even if he only makes half the amount of starts as the other guys, just him being there is huge, especially for the young guys. Taking the young guys under his wing.
Absolutely. That's the important part. I mean, the Yankees have rebuilt this entire team in less than a year, pretty much. Right? So you need a couple of savvy veterans on your team, and who better to have than Brett Gardner, who was pretty much raised as a Yankee by Derek Jeter and Sabathia after he came over. And Sabathia, I mean, both of these guys are pretty much the unofficial captains of the Yankees.
Yeah, if I had to give it to anybody, it'd be one of those two, definitely.
Yep. And anytime a new guy comes onto the team, I always hear in interviews, they always talk about, oh well, CC was the first one to greet me, or CC, kind of took me out to dinner, and that's what you need on a big team, on a very renowned team as the Yankees. You need a veteran, and that's what Jeter and that's what all those guys like O'Neill and Williams they did before they retired. They always took all these young guys. Probably Robbie Cano, one of the most notable ones, probably took him under their wings, and we won't really talk much about Robbie Cano because what's happened to him since he's left the Yankees. I mean, he's a Met now.
Right, let's not go down there.
Yeah, whoever thought that would happen. So we got the veterans out of the way. Another key re-signing was the bringing back of Jay Happ. They signed him for 2 years at $34 million with a vesting option for a third year. They acquired him last year at the trade deadline, and he was phenomenal since coming to the Yankees.
I mean, you can't say enough about a guy who got traded to a team and didn't lose a game for them until. We can't forget about the start against Boston, but all things considered, he was awesome in New York. He's looked very comfortable there. I think what it came down to for the Yankees was Happ or Eovaldi, and I think they felt a lot more comfortable with Happ just because the way he handled everything. He likes being there. I don't think Eovaldi wanted to come back to the Yankees in any ways.
Nope.
And why would he? I don't blame the guy.
No,
he's basically already a legend in Boston now.
Yeah, plus the Yankees, 2 years ago, Yankees pretty much gave up on him. They released him.
They did. When he had his next surgery.
He had his second surgery. They let him go. And if I was a starting pitcher in the major leagues looking for a long-term contract, why would I want to re-sign with a team that gave up on me?
Right, that's what I mean. He did what he had to do, and I don't blame the guy 1 second for it.
But no, I agree. I think Happ was the right thing. This is your number 3 starter, probably 3
and
or
it's
4
pretty good
starter.
number 3.
Yeah.
He's actually probably going to be number 4, depending on how they want to do lefties righties. And that's a pretty good 3 or 4 starter.
I mean, what was the biggest issue last year with the Yankees was, other than Judge and a couple guys
Didi getting hurt.
Yeah. Other than that, the big issue was their starting pitching. They could not stay healthy, and when you have guys like Domingo Germán and Jonathan Malasiga making spot starts,
and
not
down
just one
in the stretch.
Yeah, not just one start. They made multiple starts for the Yankees, who still won 100 games, by the way. That's not what you want. You want to have a deep rotation. Oh, we're forgetting about Jordan Montgomery going down in the second month of the season. That was a big blow.
Yeah.
So, you want guys that have been proven to stay healthy. You want guys that had solid years last year, and all these guys have. I mean, Sabathia.
I don't think there are much worse rotations out there than the Yankees. Okay, everyone complains about their starting pitching.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good. If Severino can pitch the way he did in the first half the whole season, and Paxton does what he did last year, Tanaka, he's a little inconsistent, but when he's on, and he's great in the postseason.
Well,
and he raw half number 4. I mean,
and the nice thing about Tanaka is I feel like he's at least the last couple of years he's struggled in the first half, but he's really found his groove in the second half, and he's been, in my opinion, probably their most consistent postseason pitcher.
He pitches good when it matters.
I
He
mean,
really does. You feel good about him when he's going out there in the playoffs.
He was the one that got the one win against Boston, right?
Of course, yeah.
So he pitched really well last season in the playoffs against a tough Houston team and a tough Cleveland team. So
he was my pick to start the wild card last year if I could have picked.
I was a little 50-50 on Severino just because he was so inconsistent after the All-Star break. And to be honest, and we don't have to linger on this for too long, I'm just going to say that I wasn't as blown away by Severino's start in the wild card game as a lot of people seem to have been. Like, he was dominant. He was dominant the first inning.
First inning is unbelievable.
But he only pitched 5 innings, if I remember correctly. 5.
Yeah. It wasn't more than 5. I know that.
No. So the fact that he couldn't get past the 5th inning concerned me, and that kind of worried me about his start against Boston. But we don't have to talk about that. But he was throwing a lot of pitches. He was not hitting his spots. It looked like he was relying on the slider a lot.
Well, I don't understand why the first inning he was dominant with the fastball, and then the second inning he switched to.
He threw pure heat in the first inning, and then after that he hardly threw any fastballs.
I don't know if that was the game plan. I'm not sure.
You could probably ask my father-in-law. I was sitting on the couch with him while we were watching this game, and I was like, "Why is he throwing so many sliders?" I mean, he was getting into I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he seemed like he was getting into 3-2 counts on every hitter after the first inning, and I don't know if that's. I know the Yankees are trying to stay away from the fastball. That's been something that Rothschild's been preaching.
It's going through baseball as a whole now, yeah.
And I always was taught to build off your fastball, establish a good fastball, then you use your secondary and tertiary pitches to keep hitters off balance. That seems to have always worked, in the past. Why all of a sudden the big change? Maybe that's something we can look into as this season goes on and maybe talk more about that. See how it.
Let's just hope he's correcting the whole tipping pitches problem that he's had.
So,
I mean I think that's the biggest concern. He has the stuff. He has pitched well in plenty of games, obviously, Severino, but it's the tipping pitches towards the end of the game. You could just tell the guys at Boston just knew what was coming.
I mean, is it a fatigue thing? Is he doing it when he gets further in the game?
It's obviously something with his hands. It's got to be something with his hands not coming up all set. I don't know.
That game, they looked like they knew exactly what was coming.
They did?
They did.
Yep. It's a lot easier to play with when you know what's coming at you.
I mean, maybe they found another way to use an Apple Watch. I don't know. Anyways,
we can go all day on that.
Yeah, moving on. Let's see. So after Hap, the Yankees not re-signed. They took a flyer on
Tulo.
On Tulo, yes, and this had seemed to cause a major stir in Yankees Twitterverse because people immediately thought that this would take them out of the running for Machado. Let's get one thing straight. Tulo hasn't played since 2017. And that season, I think he only played 41 games. He has not proven he can stay healthy. And, the only reason the Yankees signed him is because Didi is going to be out for a while. He's going to miss most of this, probably
most of the season.
Yeah. So you need someone that can play shortstop. But to say that he's taking over at shortstop, that's absurd. And I don't know what you think, Brad, but that's just my take.
I think if you, as a Yankee fan, believe that they were going into opening day as Tulowitzki being their everyday shortstop, then you're crazy. Come on. We're not. People get paid a lot more money than us to make these big decisions, and even we know that's not what they're going to do. Brian Cashman's job hinges on putting the best team as he can out there, and he's not going into the season with the only Tulowitzki as a starting shortstop, and that's his plan.
Now,
it's just.
Go ahead. Finish.
I'm just saying it just doesn't make. It just wouldn't make sense. I mean, I understand they want to save money, and there was other. You have to understand there's another move coming because they're not going to go into the year as Tulowitzki at shortstop, Torres at second, and your backup Wade, and that's it. It just wouldn't make sense.
No, and this is the brilliant thing behind this because Toronto released him. He still owed $38 million.
Oh, so much money. Yeah.
But Toronto's on the hook for that. So really, the Yankees signed a potential veteran. I mean, he is a veteran, but he could have a fantastic year. He could, and the Yankees would only be paying him $550,000
minimum.
So, yeah. So
why wouldn't
you do that? If he gets hurt, then who cares?
And there were a lot of major league teams going after. It wasn't just the Yankees. There was a lot of teams.
I think it was 11 teams went to his workout, 14 teams, something like that. So why wouldn't you? I mean, I think it came out the Cubs and the Pirates, if I'm not mistaken, were looking to sign him as their everyday shortstop. Cubs, I think, were definitely looking at him to do that. So, this is, and on Tulo's side, why wouldn't you sign with the Yankees? You idolized Derek Jeter growing up. He was your favorite player. You came to one of his last games as a Yankee in Yankee Stadium. I mean, this is where he wants to be, clearly. And he came out saying that he wants to be surrounded by the best players, and the Yankees have a lot of the best players in the major leagues. So
he's going to get paid regardless, and any team that signed him was going to offer him the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you not go to your team that you've idolized your whole life and then be surrounded by a great team you're in the playoffs? I'm sorry, the American League's down to 4 teams, the same 4 teams this year as it was last year.
If it's another team, I will be incredibly surprised.
Yeah, it had to be a surprise team. Like last year, the surprise team was Oakland. Mm-hmm. This year, I don't know who that 5th wildcard team is going to be, but
I'm going to say Anaheim, but that's
we'll get there.
That's a different conversation.
But anyways, this is the place that Tulo belongs.
Yep.
And as a Yankee fan, I was actually not at all unhappy about this because it's a low risk, high reward kind of deal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he could turn around. He could play the first half of the season. He could hit 15 home runs and hit 260 and drive in a significant amount of run. That's production. And if you're not signing Tulo and you don't end up signing Machado, then your starting shortstop is Tyler Wade. And if I had to choose between Tyler Wade and Troy Tulowitzki as my starting shortstop in an emergency situation, I'd go with Tulowitzki just because he's been there.
He's been there, yeah. And the only time I'm against these kind of veteran deals is when they block an up-and-coming rookie from getting a spot. But the Yankees don't really have that infielder right now in their system that they want to get to the major leagues this year.
I mean, the thought is that after this year, they signed Didi to a long-term deal. I've heard that floating around.
Yeah.
So why would you then sign someone significant to come in and be your everyday shortstop when you're planning to sign your current everyday shortstop to a long-term deal? See, the whole conversation about Machado is you bring him and he could possibly play third base. I mean, the Yankees are the only team he's willingly said he would play third base for.
Right.
So him blocking Didi down the line doesn't seem like an issue. But Tulowitzki, it's a 1-year deal. He's with the Yankees this year. He's gone next year. And if he plays well enough, he probably gets a big deal somewhere else.
Yeah, he's probably not going to be Yankee after this year, regardless of what happens.
No. So it's a win-win situation in my book. So
I couldn't agree more.
After Tulo, the Yankees brought back Zach Britton, which for some reason I always call him Chris Britton.
Okay.
Chris, but that's going way back, and this is a completely different Britton. They acquired him last year at the trade deadline from the Orioles. They re-signed him to a 3-year deal, approximately $39 million. This is kind of a complicated contract if you haven't been paying attention. He's guaranteed 2 years, and guaranteed 2 years. And after the second year, the Yankees can choose whether or not they want to pick up his option. If they do, he gets 4 years. If they don't, he can elect free agency after the 3rd year. I know it's complicated, and I get isn't Scott Boras his
I don't know who his agent is. No.
I read somewhere that this might be a new thing, starting with big contracts, at least for relievers.
Well, if you notice, every contract now, the big thing is opt outs for either the team or the player. No matter what, it's going to be part of every contract going forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and you'll probably see that. I'm pretty much going to guarantee that you will see that in any contract that Bryce Harper or Manny Machado sign, and even when Aaron Judge or Gary Sanchez or Nolan Arenado next year sign their big deals, they will most certainly have.
They'll have opt-outs. Yep.
Opt-outs in it. Maybe one, or there might be more than one. You could have an opt-out after 2 years, opt-out after 4 years, something like that. But it's a trend, so don't be surprised if you see that in any big contracts coming up this year or next. So the thing with Britton is he's your lefty. He's your lefty out of the pen. And this is probably because they didn't get the chance to sign Andrew Miller. He went to St. Louis, and then they missed out on D-Rob. He signed with the Phillies. So Britton was easily the best reliever, one of the best relievers on the market at that time. So
I don't see them as missing out on Robertson or Miller. I see it as they wanted Britton all along.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I thought Robertson, his age is getting there. He took a step back last year, if you ask me. He was not the guy that he was in the playoffs 2 years ago when he was unbelievable in the playoffs. Last year he was not that guy. He gave up a lot more home runs last year. I don't know the stats, but it was definitely more. I think Britton was not the Britton that he can be last year because he was coming off the injury. Mm-hmm. The ground ball rate that he produces with his pitches is perfect for Yankee Stadium.
Absolutely.
They needed a lefty more than anything. Andrew Miller gets hurt a lot. Mm-hmm. I think Britton's the guy they wanted all along, and I'm really happy they brought him back. I thought Britton would be the guy that wants to go somewhere because he wants to close. Mm-hmm. From what I hear, that's what Robertson wanted to do. He wanted to go somewhere so he wanted to close as well.
Phillies are going to be a good place for that.
Yeah. So I think the Yankees got the guy they wanted rather than missing out on other people.
And the great thing about Britton was, he kind of struggled when he first came over from after the trade. And
he did,
and even before the trade, because I think he only made a handful of appearances with Baltimore before. But he's trying to find his all of his mechanics. When you come back from an injury like that, it's hard to sometimes find your release point, especially after you haven't pitched in a while in a high-pressure situation. But if you notice, as the season went on in September, and even in the playoffs, except for that one game against Boston, Britton seemed to be on. And he's only 2 years, or was it 2 years removed from the
Cy Young candidate?
Yeah, where he had 50-something saves in a season. If he can come in to the Yankees and have a season like that, where he's that dominant, that's a win for the Yanks. And
absolutely.
And you're building this massive super pen again, like the Yankees seem to have been doing the past couple of years. So on top of Britton, you have Betances and you have Chapman, and then you have Chad Green and potentially, is it Heller? No, who's the other?
Holder,
Kyle Holder. Yeah.
And I don't want the Yankees to be done. I think the next
Holder,
move.
sorry.
I think the next move the Yankees got to make is I think they go out and get Ottavino. Why not? Mm-hmm. That's another reliever. The best part about getting relievers is you're taking relievers away from Boston because they need a closer. The only thing, if you take Ottavino now, either Red Sox have to pony up and pay Kimbrel, or they're gonna have some huge issues in their bullpen because they lost Joe Kelly too, and Eovaldi's going to their rotation now. Mm-hmm. So I say go get Ottavino just for that, and you'll have another one of the best bullpens in history again. Mm-hmm.
And you won't have to worry. I mean, that's depth. That's purely depth, and it's a good thing to have depth. You can never, ever have too much pitching, ever.
No.
And this is great because you have 5, 6 quality arms in your bullpen. You give guys like Chapman and Betances and I guess Britton too, in this instance, breaks every now and then. I mean, if you think back to when Mariano was the closer, they didn't really have. They maybe had. Well, during their dynasty, they had Mike Stanton and Jeff Nelson and a couple other guys. But
Graham Lloyd was there.
But he wasn't there all four championships. He was only there for 96, maybe 98 too, and so you're trying to build something so that, like, say Chapman goes down like he did last year, and he misses a significant amount of time. then you have Betances or Britton that can easily step into that closer role and fill in while he's gone. I mean, Robertson kind of did that last year when Chapman went down, but you hope because the Yankees signed Chapman to a 5-year deal that he doesn't miss significant time. And with this depth, you're helping him last the whole season. You want him pitching meaningful games in September. You want all these guys pitching meaningful games in September. So
Chad, I listened to Chad Green on the radio the other day, and he said it's actually really fun to be part of this bullpen, just because at any given game, any one of them could be the closer. If they want to rest Chapman, all these guys are like all-star quality closers. It's actually really fun for them, and it's fun for the fans to have those options. Other teams, I don't think you realize if you're a fan of another team, they don't have those options, and we're taking it for granted. It's kind of an embarrassment of riches what the Yankees have back there.
This is one of those instances where we're kind of spoiled as Yankee fans because you're going out there and you're going to see a good relief pitcher, whereas like when Mariano was pitching, you're like, oh, I can't wait till they get to the 9th inning to see Mariano. And there were instances where Mariano would come in 2 and 3 inning saves. You don't see that as much anymore. Usually, your closer only comes in the 9th. I probably can only count on one hand how many times Chapman came in for more than 1 inning of relief last year.
Chapman will come in. He'll get once in a while. He'll get like a 4 or 5 out save, but it's usually never 2 innings. The only guy for the Yankees back in the bullpen that usually goes that long would be Chad Green, and that's a testament to the fact that he was a starter for most of his career, so he's able to do that without getting fatigued.
So that's Zach Britton. The latest move that they made, and these are just free agent signings. We'll get into the trade in a minute, and we'll talk about LeMahieu rather quickly. But they signed him on Friday, right? That was Friday.
It was Friday, yeah.
To a 2-year deal. The Yankees have not officially announced the deal yet, so you won't see anything pop up on social media from us until the deal is made official. That's kind of my rule of thumb. I've seen things happen where someone said they've been signed and then they end up the deal ends up falling through. So you won't see anything like that. But anyways, they brought in LeMahieu. He is a second baseman. He was a second baseman with the Rockies. He's 2 years or a year or so removed from winning the batting title, where he hit 348. He's a contact hitter, and he's a very good defensive player. Very good defensive player. That goes so far for the Yankees. And no one's saying that he's coming in to be a starter yet. We'll see where the Yankees are when they enter spring training and when opening day comes around. But because we have a month until then, anything can still happen. Anything. But even if the Yankees don't make a big move, having LeMahieu is still a luxury. He's still a good defender. He's still a good baseball player. And if you put him at second, you can probably shift Gleyber Torres over to shortstop. He can play some games there. I know Brad and I have been talking about this, trying to figure out where LeMahieu fits in. And this could lead to other things down the road. I mean, what do you think, Brad?
Well, yeah, the best thing about the LeMahieu deal is that it gives Aaron Boone fallbacks for the other positions, because you don't know how Tulowitzki's going to be at shortstop, and you don't know if Voit and Bird don't impress at first base. LeMahieu also has played first base in his past, so he can actually play first, second, or shortstop. Not so much third, but first, second, or shortstop. And
he's had to deal with Arenado at third, so probably going to get
he hasn't much of a chance
there.
So that's huge for the infield, because the Yankees' infield is pretty awful. They haven't had a great first baseman fielding-wise since Mark Teixeira. They haven't had a great third base defender since, A-Rod, I guess. A-Rod was a really good third base defender. Not really many people remember that.
Considering that he wasn't a third baseman to start.
Because Headley wasn't that great of a fielder.
No, he wasn't. He had throwing problems. And then who was the third baseman before Headley? Was it A-Rod?
Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Now you got Andujar, who, and I could talk about this all day, and Brad's probably going to laugh when I say this, but even though he was snubbed for Rookie of the Year, probably one of the big reasons why he was snubbed for Rookie of the Year was because he lacked in the defensive metric side of the ball. We all know Andujar can hit, but the defense just was not there. Not saying he can improve, because obviously A-Rod was able to improve. He moved from shortstop to third base when he came over from Texas, and he developed into a premier third baseman. Now, I'm not saying Andujar can be a Gold Glove-winning third baseman, but he can definitely get better and definitely be a serviceable third baseman. So, don't just say, well, Andujar sucks at third, and he shouldn't be a third baseman. He can get better. He's still young.
A good bat goes a long way. Look how many teams deal with Daniel Murphy's defense at second base because he's such a good hitter.
Mm-hmm.
He's an awful second baseman.
Perfect example, Brad.
And I think that's another reason why, if actually you want to bring it back to LeMahieu, I think that's a really reason why that they went after LeMahieu instead of Daniel Murphy. Daniel Murphy would have been a great left-handed bat in that lineup, and he's a second baseman. But the fact that their defense was so awful, not awful, but it's not a strong point of their team, LeMahieu was the better option. Yeah, and they also have more versatility in LeMahieu because Daniel Murphy's strictly a second baseman / DH, and Yankees DH spots are pretty clogged up too, as you know.
That
so
is probably the biggest understatement of this whole show.
Yeah,
be that
they have a lot of guys that can just hit. That don't necessarily want to. It's unfortunate. The Yankees are funny because they have a team full of DHs that don't actually want to specialize in DHs. They actually all play the field. And Stanton's actually a great defender. People don't realize that.
But that gets overshadowed because Aaron Judge is even better.
He's a great fielder too. Yeah,
he's a fantastic outfielder, and that's why Judge is your right fielder and not Stanton. But no, LeMahieu. This could set up a number of things. You could get, with LeMahieu coming in, it could set up a trade. It could. I'm not saying it will, but
if you want to get crazy, it could.
It could. That kind of. I mean, the Yankees had a crowded outfield coming into this offseason. And all this talk about potentially signing Bryce Harper. That would make the outfield even more crowded. Well, now that they picked up Tulowitzki and LeMahieu, that kind of creates a situation in the infield. You have Bird and Voit at first. You have Torres, and now LeMahieu at second. You have Didi when he comes back. Tulo at short, and then you have probably the only third baseman on the roster in Andujar. And then you have guys like Tyler Wade, who's probably going to be used in some capacity this year. He's fast, so he could be used as more of a pinch runner. But when your bench is Tyler Wade and Ronald Torres at the end of the season, they needed to improve. And this could potentially be that move that does that. They could keep LeMahieu, make a big splash in the free agent market, and move one of these excess infielders, and then you further fortify your infield. I mean, it's
so right now, who plays third base now if Andujar needs a day off? Who's it going to be? Exactly. We don't know. We're drawing blanks here. Yeah. Yep. So that'd be interesting to see. I mean, going to put LeMahieu there? I don't know. Can you make Tulowitzki a third baseman? I don't know what kind of arm he has. He probably work better than his range because his range is not going to have this kind of range he needs at shortstop, and I think that's gone down too. So he could take some shots over there, but they're going to need someone to play third base.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether that's Machado, we don't know. We can get into that a little bit more in a few, but like Brad said earlier, Cashman's just trying to make this team the best he can. And outside of Machado and Harper, there weren't as many big name free agents as you'd like there to be. So you got to make the best of what's available. Well, LeMahieu is a solid option. He's going to put the ball in play. I mean, he had a down year last year. He only hit .276. To me, for a contact hitter, that's not good enough.
No.
Batting average. He can hit home run. I mean, he hit 15 home runs, and he still drove in 62 RBIs. He's a career .298 hitter.
That's pretty good.
So you put him in a lineup with, some of these guys that the Yankees have in their batting order, and that can only make him better. You would think, in theory.
Yeah, I agree. In Colorado, he was one of the main guys. I don't think he has to be one of the main guys in New York. He just has to be the guy that puts the bat in the ball, which the Yankees need. The Yankees need contact hitters. They don't have enough of those guys.
They rely so much on the home run that I'm curious actually to see how many of because the Yankees set a franchise record in home runs last year. I'm curious to see how many of those home runs were solo home runs.
Probably a really good amount.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt that for a second. So, all in all, the LeMahieu deal it's a good deal. There's nothing as a Yankee fan you should be upset about this deal.
No.
Listen, I know everyone wants holding off Machado. It would have been great but he's not a necessity. I think adding LeMahieu and these starting pitchers that we just talked about makes a 100-win team even better this year.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't even talk about the trade yet because the Yankees did
right.
make
We're getting there.
a big trade early on in the offseason, and that was they traded for Seattle's ace, the Mariners' ace, James Paxton. He's a big left-handed hitter, nicknamed Big Maple. He was easily their top pitcher. And now I don't even know who the Mariners' top pitcher is because it sure isn't Felix Hernandez anymore. But they gave up Justice Sheffield, who was the Yankees' top pitching prospect, who, hasn't done anything in the major leagues. He hasn't. He pitched a few relief appearances last year. He's still the book is yet to be written on him.
He's still just a prospect.
You don't know what he's capable of. He hasn't pitched 2 years in the major leagues and thrown 200 innings and stayed healthy and pitched with a under 3 ERA. Not that Paxton has, but with the ERA with that said, but he's still a quality pitcher. He threw a no-hitter last year against the Blue Jays. He is a good pitcher, and when you slot him into a rotation like this, I mean, he just makes that's adding to the depth. He becomes your number 2 or number 3 pitcher.
I mean, Cashman said all along his main objective this offseason was starting pitching. And clearly, he stuck to his guns and he went after starting pitching. Mm-hmm. He got Paxton, he got Happ. Paxton he's an impact pitcher. He is an ace that's coming over now and can be the Yankees' number 2 guy. So he might even be any better this year. He's just reaching his prime, so he's not like on the down slope of his career, which is better than I guess you could say the guys from Trevor Bauer's in his prime, but not Kimbrel. Who am I?
Kluber.
Kluber. I don't know why I had Kimbrel. Kluber's on the down part of his career, so they say. Bumgarner's kind of towards the second half of his career. I think Paxton was a great guy to go after. Once Cashman heard Seattle was selling, that's a great thing. Seattle, when you were talking about their rotation, they're not very good. I mean, Seattle actually, they were selling, like they're rebuilding, but they actually put together a decent team in the field, but their pitching is awful. They did get the Japanese pitcher everyone's talking about.
Which is kind of interesting because they were in battle with Oakland for the final wild card spot, pretty much down to the last game of the year, and both teams really didn't have pitching. I mean, look at the wild card game. The A's
went to a bullpen,
which was dumb beyond all means, in my opinion. They should never have done that. I think they could have started what's his name, Michael Fiers, to pitch against the Yankees. He's pitched well against the Yankees in the past. And he probably would have rose to the occasion. But when you try and piece together, a pitching staff on a wild card game, what if they won? What if the A's won? What the heck would they have done in a 5-game series or 7-game series?
That would have been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't bullpen every game. You definitely can't. I mean, how many pitchers did they have throw in that game? They had 3 or 4. What if the Yankees scored 12 runs? What if the Yankees scored 15 runs? That's a lot of pitchers you're going to have to cycle through, or you're just going to have to have one guy bite the bullet. I mean, what they do in the regular season. But, bullpenning kind of makes sense during the season in a sense of, saving guys' arms and
we'll talk about that. As season goes on, I'm sure we'll have a lot of discussions about different strategies like bullpenning,
Yeah, I'm sure the A's are going to do it again. I'm sure the Rays are going to do it again. I'm sure a couple other teams might adopt this strategy.
I think it's going to get more... even bigger. It's going to spread.
I know you had mentioned last year that this was the future of Major League Baseball. So it could very well be. But I don't know, call me old-fashioned. I think the traditional way of having a starter go 6 or 7 innings is the most efficient way.
If you ask me, in my opinion, what I want to watch is the old-fashioned. I want to start it. I want to look in the in the newspaper, or you see so-and-so versus so-and-so. Like, the 2 starters going. You're hoping to see a great pitch game from both sides. That's the old-fashioned way. That's the way it should be. But analytics, man, they're coming in. Yeah. And when they see the stats that a pitcher doesn't do as good the second, third time around the lineup, why leave him in? It makes sense, you know?
I mean, it's hard to refute that. It's just, as a fan, as a person paying the money to go to the game, say bullpenning takes over, and even these big name starters like Chris Sale or Corey Kluber or, a lot of these guys end up only pitching 2 innings. I'm not paying my hard-earned money to go see, or say Luis Severino turns into this dominant Cy Young pitcher, which he can very well become. I'm not paying all my hard-earned money to go see a Severino start where he only pitches 2 innings. I want to see him strike out 15 batters. I want to see him go deep into a game. I want to see him pitch, and then I want to see him hand the ball off to Chapman. Or I want to see the potential of a perfect game or a no-hitter. If you switch to bullpenning, that essentially takes that away from the game, and that's a shame because those are exciting things to watch.
There's something special about seeing a pitcher go the distance or go a long game and have a great pitch game. There's something special about that I hope comes back to the game eventually.
I do too. And it'll be a shame if that's something that goes away. You hardly see complete games anymore. I think the Yankees had 1 or 2 as a team last season.
Yeah, and I don't remember them, so that's how rare it was.
One I know for sure. One was Tanaka. Maybe Severino had one. I don't know.
Couldn't tell you.
But that's just it's upsetting. But getting back to Paxton, he definitely rounds out the pitching staff, the starting rotation, and they really didn't give up much to get him. I mean, it's a shame you lose out on your top pitching prospect, but like I said, you don't know what he's capable of. He hasn't done anything yet. Pretty much his value is at an all-time high, and if he goes to Seattle and becomes a Cy Young Award winner, great for them. If Paxton, in return, does what he was acquired to do, then that was a good trade for both teams. If Sheffield goes to the Mariners and he completely fizzles out as a prospect, and you never hear from him again, the Yankees clearly won that trade. I mean, look at the Jesus Montero trade.
Right. Well, it didn't work out. They didn't work out for either team, honestly.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But I would say if you had to pick a loser of that trade, it was definitely the Mariners. Montero hardly played a full season for them.
No, he just liked to eat a lot, and that's about it.
Yep. So,
Paxton, he's probably gonna be slotted. If I had to guess, he'd be right behind Severino. I'm gonna guess they go lefty righty. So you'll have Severino, Paxton, Tanaka, then Hap, and CC / anybody, and that's a pretty good guy to have as second.
And the other nice thing is you might get Jordan Montgomery back towards the end of the season.
Right, I'm not sure when he's coming back.
You don't know, and you don't know what he's capable of because Tommy John surgery is a big deal. But say he comes back and is pretty effective, like he was before he got hurt. Now you have six good starters, and
I've always been a huge Montgomery fan.
Yeah, and you're losing CC after this year, so he could just slide right into CC's spot, and your pitching staff is pretty much set. So.
Yep. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
What do we got next?
Okay, so that pretty much covers the big acquisitions this year. This offseason so far, there's talk of them possibly signing Adam Ottavino, who is right now probably I don't even want to admit it, but Kimbrel's easily the top reliever.
Kimbrel's the top guy out there, but he wants way too much money.
Way too much money, and his agent's talking him up as the best closer of all time, which I think is shenanigans. They're saying he's better than Mariano. Now, I looked at his numbers, and if he pitches another 10 years and stays on track, he could come close to breaking, if not breaking, Mariano's all-time save record, which, great. But I just don't
see it happening, though.
I don't see it because you're banking on him staying healthy, and it's very rare, especially when these relief pitchers get into their mid to late 30s. You don't know if they're going to make it. You don't know if they're going to. Mariano pitched till he was 40, 41 years old. That's unheard of. You're not going to see anyone.
And he actually could have pitched longer if he wanted to.
Yeah.
It's not like his numbers were sliding.
No, he was dominant his final season. So I don't see it. But outside of him, because whoever signs Kimbrel is going to pay an absurd amount of money to have in an open. Likely be the Red Sox, like you said. But outside of that, you got Ottavino, and I think. They say he's got one of the most devastating sliders.
Yep.
For a relief pitcher. So why wouldn't you want to pick him up? I think if they sign Ottavino, they probably don't sign any more big name players. But
I think Ottavino will be the end.
Looking at it from a financial standpoint, because that apparently is the Yankees' big thing now. Is you got to sign team-friendly deals or deals that benefit them in the long run, because they've been spurned by players like Mark Teixeira towards the end of his contract. He couldn't stay healthy, and the current problem is Jacoby Ellsbury.
Yeah.
They're saying he might be healthy this year, but you don't know that.
It's not. Come on, for Ellsbury, let's be real about it. He's not going to be healthy this season.
He's not. And even if he was healthy, he didn't play at all last year, and he hardly played the season before that. How do you know? You don't know what you're going to get from him. He's pretty much the Tulowitzki of the outfield right now, except you're paying him $21 million.
Right. And the Yankees, Blue Jays didn't think it was even worth it to keep Tulowitzki around, even though they were paying him. The Yankees, for some reason, they do think it is worth it. If you're paying the guy, to have him around, see what you get out of him. So, we'll see. I mean, what are you going to do?
But like we said, the benefit is the Yankees are paying him only $500,000 if he doesn't work out. That's what's $500,000 to the New York Yankees?
Right. It's
nothing. They're not paying. The Toronto Blue Jays still have to pay that $38 million, regardless of whether he works out with the Yankees or not. So, but we can talk about Machado if you want. I don't know. We talked about taking a quick break to see if
we can talk about Machado
work, but so as everybody knows, and it's been probably the most talked about thing on the Yankees Twitterverse in the past 3 months. There are two major free agents available right now. One is Manny Machado, and the other is Bryce Harper. And a couple years ago, this offseason, everybody knew that these guys were going to become free agents at the same time. So this offseason was very, very hyped up. And Cashman made some comments in the past saying that this could become some sort of mega team. They could sign both. Based on how this offseason has gone so far, doesn't seem like it's the case. But who wouldn't want to sign either of these guys? I mean, what's your take, Brad?
Well, yeah, I mean, I could see. I've always been on the. I've gone back and forth. So last year I was like, Yankees are a great team as it is now. Why ruin it? We don't need Harper. Harper had a bad season. Machado, he's great, but is he the kind of guy you really want? But then I got to thinking during the offseason, I'm like, listen, you have two guys that are on Hall of Fame type numbered tracks right now. Why wouldn't you want to bring them in if you could? I mean, you put either one of those guys, especially Harper, if you put Harper in between Judge and Stanton, you're going to have the best 2, 3, 4 in the history of the game. Mm-hmm. Not to mention combine that with an already one of the best bullpens ever in history of the game. That puts you over the top. And I think that's why a lot of fans are frustrated now, because you could become the absolute team to beat if you added these two guys. Obviously, it's not in the plans, unless there's something we don't know about that's going to happen in the last minute. Everyone keeps saying that because it's Cashman, but I really don't think it's going to happen. It's not my money, but if it was my money, I'd spend it on these two guys. I mean, they looked at this offseason for a long time as the offseason, combined with Jose Fernandez. If he was still alive, he was going to be part of this offseason that the Yankees were going to go after, and they would have been.
You bet Cashman go after him. I mean, he'd probably go after him before any of these two guys.
It was predicted by Buster Olney, I think, 2-3 years ago, that the Yankees going to have an uber team this next season, because they were going to sign Machado, Harper, and Fernandez. Now it's looking like it's going to be none of them. And while I am on the side that I want both of them, I'm not disappointed that they're not coming. You know what I mean? It would have been great to have them, but we're still a good team without them. I mean, that's my view.
To the people who are watching this, if people do watch this, both of these guys are luxuries. A lot of the guys the Yankees have right now are luxuries. I mean, you look at Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. We lucked out with Aaron Judge because he's still under team control. But Stanton fell into the Yankees' laps last year. You make that trade 100 times out of 100 times,
Absolutely.
So adding these guys would easily be a luxury. And does it guarantee the Yankees win the World Series if they sign either of these guys? No, absolutely not. Does it increase their odds? Probably, because they're very good.
Probably definitely increase the odds, yeah.
They're very good hitters. They're very good defenders. I mean, Machado won a platinum glove. Can you remember the last time someone won a platinum glove? No. But so coming into the offseason, even for both of these guys, the three main teams that were linked to both of these players were the Yankees, the Phillies, and the White Sox. Apparently the White Sox have all this money to spend, and the Phillies as well. Now it doesn't seem like the Phillies are in on Machado, and it seems like though no one wants to play for the White Sox. And apparently the Yankees haven't even offered a contract to Machado. But this could either be brilliant or stupid. Because if you think about it, you got the Phillies and the White Sox claiming that they've made contract offers to Machado. And then what if they're not? And obviously Machado doesn't want to play for the White Sox, well, we think. And it doesn't seem like he wants to play for the Phillies. So you don't just go out there and make a contract offer to him. Because what if you make some foolish offer for some stupid amount of money and you're stuck with this guy for spending all this money when you could wait for his market to come down because these teams aren't offering what he wants, and then because he's been linked to wanting to play for the Yankees, you let him come to the Yankees and say, okay, I want to play for you guys. This is how much I want now. And then you make the deal. You let him come to you.
Well, that's what everyone thinks Cashman's doing is they're saying let the market play itself out. That's the term you keep hearing. And by that they mean let the deals come. Let other teams offer them money. Cashman can look at them and say, what can we do? Can we come in a little bit less, but then offer them to play for the Yankees, which they all want to do? Or is it going to be so astronomical that we're not going to bother? That's what he's doing right now. And it's actually pretty smart because he's learned from the past that that's what he should do. Will that happen? I don't know. Obviously, it's the Yankees. So agents are always going to check back with the Yankees before they make a final decision. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Plus, having the Yankees involved definitely drives up the price for other teams because a lot of players want to play for the Yankees. So in order to get teams to pry these players away from the Yankees, they're going to have to offer him more. But the other thing is, I kind of forgot what I was going to say. So I lost my train of thought. But the Yankees obviously, it'd be foolish for them to not want these players, and you hope that these other teams. This is what I was going to say. These other teams might not be as patient as the Yankees, right? So, because the Yankees know that they can come in last minute and say, oh, well, this is what we'll give you, and okay, you want to play for us, great. But the Phillies and the White Sox might get impatient. They might, instead of waiting on Machado or Harper, they might start to fill out their rosters, and then you get these guys looking at, oh, well, shoot, I thought the White Sox wanted me, but now they signed a shortstop and they signed a third baseman. I guess my options are limited now. Maybe I do need to play. Maybe my only choice is the Yankees, and I have to kind of meet them halfway on their offer. So it's a bold strategy because then it also could turn around and be like, oh well, shoot, the Yankees didn't offer me a contract. I guess I'll just sign with the Phillies.
Yep. And then and I feel like Cashman would be okay with that. So
because
it's a good spot to be in. Yeah,
because like you said, the way that the roster is constructed right now. You and myself, we're okay with where they are. But, the other thing is signing Machado also causes a lot more issues with the Yankees, which is not a bad problem to have because now you have a plethora of infielders. Now if the Yankees somehow end up with Machado, you have Machado, Andujar, Tulowitzki, Gregorius, LeMahieu, Gleyber-Torres, Voit, and Berg. That's what, 8 infielders? 9
you would
infielders?
think that if they signed Machado, they would have to make a trade one way or another.
And the one player that has been linked to being traded this offseason throughout this whole Machado conversation has been Miguel Andujar.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. And this might upset a lot of people because, why would you give up a 300 hitter who hit 27 home runs in his rookie season and just barely missed out winning Rookie of the Year, technically won Rookie of the Year, for a guy who you're going to have to pay $30 million a year for the next some odd years when Andujar is under team control for the next 5 or 6 years. Well, the thing is, you got to look at this as, the Yankees could stick with Andujar, and then what if he bats .230 next year and hits 10 home runs, or what if he gets hurt next year
and his stock goes way down, yeah.
Then his stock goes way down. You can't trade him. When you could have had Machado and you could have had someone who's proven himself to consistently hit around 300, consistently hit 30 home runs or more, and consistently drive in around 100 runs. You're banking on a player, you're paying the money for a player that has done it, whereas you're risking it on a player who only did it one time, and you don't know if he could possibly do it again. Plus, you don't know if his defense is going to improve. I know I said before where he could get better. He might not. He might trend down. He might go complete opposite direction.
You would hope he gets better because you think that's what he's working on this whole offseason, but he might not. And the other thing the Yankees could be banking on is maybe they think that Nolan Arenado is going to want to move away from the Colorado next year. That's another option after next year. But you can't plan on that. Like, I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket because there's a good chance that Arenado signs an extension during this season. But there's always the option that if Arenado is available, they go through the same thing as they're doing right now. They look for Arenado and look for a trade for Andujar. If stock goes down, stock goes down, But it's the Yankees. You can afford to make mistakes like that.
And so the nice thing about if the Yankees sign Machado, you do have this runner-up Rookie of the Year coming up with a fantastic season. And what's the one thing that Cashman has said he's looking for? This, and we've already talked about it, starting pitching.
Right.
So you take this opportunity to improve your club even more. You don't need a bat. You don't need an outfielder. You have plenty of outfielders. And you're signing relievers. So if you can get a premier starting pitcher like a Corey Kluber or like a Trevor Bauer, and you have a player like Andujar to give up, you do it. You do it in a heartbeat. I do it every single time. But only in the instance that you're getting a Kluber or a Bauer in return.
Yeah, it had to be someone, one of the top 5 pitchers in baseball, you would think.
Or if Chris Sale wasn't on the Red Sox and was available this year, that would be the guy I would go after. That's who you give that up for. I'm not saying you give him up for someone past their prime like King Felix, who's definitely not the same pitcher he was 5 years ago. You give him up for talent. You give up talent for talent. But if he plays this year and doesn't do well, then you don't have that trade chip anymore, and now you missed out on an opportunity. So, anyways,
I think Cashman's okay with that. I think he likes where the team is right now, and I think he'll worry about. I think he's playing Andujar having another good year, and if he doesn't, then they'll worry about it next year. The Yankees, they can make other deals, they can sign other players. So I think Cashman's okay with just rolling the dice on him.
And the other player that people have talked about trading is Sonny Gray. Now you don't move Sonny Gray for the kind of talent you would require in exchange for Andujar, but because Sonny Gray has pretty much proven he cannot pitch in New York, you move him to a small market team like the Cincinnati Reds or the Padres or the Braves, and you get some of because they have I think the top organizations, minor league systems in the major leagues, and you restock your farm system by trading him, and then if you trade Andujar, you don't have Sonny Gray taking up a roster spot. You get a premier starting pitcher, and then maybe one of these starters slides into a long relief role. You don't know, but there's still so many moves that can be done in this short month that we have left before the season, and even into spring training. These moves can be made.
Right, and Sonny Gray is not. I don't think he's in a hurry to get rid of him. From what I hear, he wants 2 upper-level pitching prospects from the team. The problem that's hurting Cashman is that teams know he wants to move him, so he doesn't have the leverage. So it's going to be a waiting game whether, the team that we see the most the team we hear most about Sonny Gray with is Cincinnati Reds, and it's going to be a waiting game. How bad does Cincinnati want him before the season? How long are they willing to wait for him? That's the only leverage really Cashman has, that he doesn't really need to move him right away, but he wants to. Right now he's looking to be probably the long reliever coming out of the bullpen, which is a far fall from grace from what Sonny Gray was and what people thought he could be when the Yankees made that trade at the deadline a couple years ago.
Absolutely. So it's smart that they're hanging on to him, like you said. I know people get impatient with the fact that he hasn't been traded yet. But, then things come up like this whole CC thing. What if, CC went to the doctor on this past Monday and you found out, he can't pitch until he passes a physical exam, and he doesn't pass a physical until mid-July. Then, and you don't make a move with Andujar, and you're stuck with, you have a pitcher with Sonny Gray. He can slide into that number 5. Sonny Gray as your number 5 starter isn't the worst possible thing.
It's not terrible.
No. It's not the best possible thing. I mean, he's clearly not better than CC Sabathia, but what if for some reason Gray comes back this year with the Yankees in a starting role and he pitches just as well on the road as he does at home. I mean, then you have the pitcher you set out to acquire, and then you probably hear a lot of people on Twitter or out there saying, "Oh, well, I knew the whole time he was going to be just fine." You know, that's the problem with Twitter. That's the nonsense you see with that. But you know, it's smart that they're hanging on to him. You wait and see what else is there. You wait and see what happens with the two marquee free agents. You see where Harper and Machado go. If you end up with both of them, then you have the flexibility to make these moves. And I think once they do sign, you will see a domino effect. You will see the Yankees maybe trade Sonny Gray, or maybe they keep him. You don't know, but a lot of things will happen once Machado signs.
The whole market is around these two guys right now. For more teams than just the Yankees, for baseball in general, they're waiting for these two guys to just figure out where they're going, what kind of money they're getting. Then you'll start seeing the ball really moving on the rest of the guys in the major leagues. So there's a lot of free agents still out there. It's the same as last year. It's becoming kind of alarming now how many free agents aren't getting signed early in the process. And I think it's something that's going to come up in the next CBA, and hopefully they address it before that, so we're not looking at another player strike. You know, it could happen. It's very realistic. It could happen if these kind of off seasons keep happening.
It's true. You don't want to see your top MLB free agent talent not being signed until halfway through spring training. I mean, look at how many guys that happened to last year, and it could very well happen again this year.
It's not good for the sport.
You don't want that, and it's not good for the players. Because look at what happened to Neil Walker. You know, he didn't sign until almost the end of spring training with the Yankees, and he struggled. It took him a while to get his bat going. Everyone was ready to write him off.
Happened to a lot of guys.
Yeah, and then come down 3/4 of the way into the season, he finally hit his stride, and you could only hope that maybe if he had a legitimate full spring training, he would have been just fine, or he would have produced more during the season than what he did.
Did anybody sign him yet this year? Is he still out there?
No, not yet. Not that I know of. But I know we're kind of coming up on an hour here, so maybe we could just talk about Bryce Harper real quick, and then maybe wrap it up. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Harper's the guy that I think makes the most sense for the Yankees. Granted that they trade probably Stanton. I like Stanton. I think he's going to have a much better year this coming year. I just really like the fact that it'd be a great lefty bat at Yankee Stadium. Put him in the middle or in anywhere in the Yankees lineup. He'd be supported much more than he was in Washington. I think he'd be even better.
Absolutely.
I'm willing to overlook. He's kind of I'm going to say he's kind of a douchebag sometimes, but listen, sometimes the Yankees need a villain, if you ask me, and he'd be a great guy to have. My ultimate feeling is that he's definitely not coming to the Yankees. He's kind of up in the areas. I think the only real offer he's had is Washington so far. So it'd be very interesting because LA keeps talking about him, but they don't want. Do they really want him? Because they're not really making any moves towards him right now, and no other teams are really even linked to him other than Washington. So
well, except for today. Today apparently.
Except for today.
He met with the Phillies today. And apparently it went really well. I've been seeing on Twitter that they're the clear cut favorites to sign him.
Problem is for Philly, they have all this money and nobody wants to play there. No one wants to play for Philly. So it's always like they're the backup plan. They're that girl that you only ask out if someone else is already taken that you really want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, coming into the season, they're like, we got stupid money and we're gonna pay players. Well, so far that didn't work out for Patrick Corbin. He went to the Nationals, and ultimately, I actually think Bryce Harper, if he doesn't sign with the Yankees, if the Yankees don't come out of left field, no pun intended, if they don't come out of left field and sign him, I think he goes back to Washington. I do. I know they kind of ruled him out at the beginning, but he's comfortable there, and if he hasn't seen the kind of activity that he thought he was going to get, it'd be easy for him to go back there. And the Washington's still got a good team. It's not like he's leaving a team that's in the middle of a fire sale. They're going to contend. They're going to be a tough opponent in the NL East. So I think he just goes back there if he doesn't get what he's looking for from any of these other teams.
No, I think if Harper goes back to Washington, I think they are the favorite to come out of the National League because the Dodgers really haven't done anything. The Cubs haven't done anything. I think we heard Washington has $300+ million on the table for 10 years. He's been there his whole career. He's comfortable there. Why not take that money you'll be the front runners again in the National League. It just sounds like too good of a deal for them to pass up to go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia's not close to winning. I'm sorry. Even if they get Machado and Harper this year, they're not going to win in the next 2-3 years.
No, I mean they got a good young team. It's they rebuilt and they do have a lot of these. They were hyped up pretty much last year too to do some damage and I would expect them to grow. But the Braves I think the Braves are one of the top teams in the NL East, and then you got the Nationals. Nationals have been there the past however many years. They've been always given. They were always the favorites. And when you got pitchers like Strasburg and Scherzer, why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
But I'm going to take a little bit different take than what Brad said, and I say if the Yankees do sign them, I think they could slide him into center field and trade Aaron Hicks. I know nobody wants to hear that, but if you think about it, Hicks will be a free agent after this year. He's coming off a career year where he hit 27 home runs. He's one of the premier center fielders in the game. If the Yankees don't lock him up long term, they could trade him, and they could couple him with Sonny Gray or Andujar and get a massive return. Either way, you don't know, because Aaron Hicks is in his late 20s. You don't know if he's going to copy the success he had last year. He still battled some injuries, and he could deal with that again. Or he could have an even better year. He is kind of in his prime, but he's really only played 2 full years, and he's already in his late 20s. But right now his value is at an all-time high. Why not trade him? Sign Bryce Harper. Harper's played center field. He can do it. And when you have 2 good corner outfielders like Judge and Stanton, and Bryce Harper does play hard, and he's not slow. He can cover some ground. You'll still have a fairly solid outfield. But if you do sign Harper, you will have to trade one of those guys, either Stanton or Hicks. And it'll be a lot easier to trade Aaron Hicks, I think, than Stanton, because Stanton will probably only go to Los Angeles.
Yeah, because he has the no-trade clause, and I don't see him waiving that for any other team. We and you have always talked about trading Hicks, and for some reason it really gets brought up. So
and
the Yankees are higher on him than we are.
Yeah, well, even when they signed him, I was never really excited about him, or not signed him. They traded him for J.R. Murphy.
It was a good trade.
It was, and you never knew. I mean, he was still a prospect, but you don't know what you're going to get out of him. And so the Yankees have won that trade because Murphy's not even with the Twins anymore.
Right.
But
they say definitely it was a good trade.
Yeah, but he's at his highest value. Why not flip him and get something more from him? I know.
I agree.
People don't want to hear it because for some reason everybody's in love with Aaron Hicks now. But it's if you're willing to do that with Andujar, you should be willing to do that with Hicks as well. And you're not going to trade Judge because he's pretty much the face of the franchise.
Yeah, definitely not.
And like I said, it's going to be difficult to trade Stanton. So Hicks is kind of the odd man out. And Gardner's only going to be here for another year. They're probably not going to re-sign him after this year, I don't think. Especially if they do sign someone like Harper. Where would you... Gardner would probably hardly ever play. Plus you got Clinton Frazier waiting in the wings.
Hopefully he can stay healthy,
Yep. But he could take over the 4th outfield role because he's still under team control. And you won't have to pay him $8 or $9 million like you're paying Gardner. You got options to crowd it out. Plus, you still have Jacoby Ellsbury, who's, what do you do with him?
Is what it is.
What do you do with
what you can do.
So, I mean, do you have any other thoughts about Harper?
Just the fact, the Yankees, I don't think you should pass it up. It just makes too much sense to bring him in, if you ask me. I could literally deal with anything else. I could deal with them signing Harper and then trading Florio, who's supposed to be the center fielder for the future, for pitching. That's just too good of a option to me to do. You have the money. He wants to be there. It just makes too much sense.
I agree.
Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but it makes too much sense to me.
The way the offseason has gone so far and the picture that Cashman has painted, it's pretty obvious to me that it's either going to be one or the other or none at all. Yeah.
And we got to get something straight, too. I mean, a lot of people are bashing Cashman. This isn't Cashman. I mean, Cashman he works for Hal and Hank Steinbrother. They're the ones that tell them what kind of money he can spend. It's not like Cashman doesn't want Machado and Harper. It's definitely, this is coming from Hal, who is the guy who usually, he's more in control than Hank. It's definitely Hal running the show, and if he doesn't want to spend this money on these guys, then Cashman has to follow suit. So we can only blame Cashman so much for who he gets and who he doesn't get.
I completely agree. You can't always throw the general manager under the bus. All these come from ownership. I mean, every move that Cashman makes, he has to run it by Hank and Hal first.
Absolutely.
So, back off. Right?
I mean, look at 2009. I mean, yeah, Cashman and I got Teixeira and Teixeira, Ellsbury, and who else did he get?
It was Teixeira, Sabathia, and AJ Burnett.
Burnett, that's right. And it's like, why can't he do that again? Well, actually, Cashman didn't want to do those moves. He's come out and said those weren't his moves. Those moves that George Steinbrenner wanted to make, and some of those, now he's in a position where Teixeira didn't really perform towards the end of his career, and is what it is. But that's Cashman. I think he's done a brilliant job with the money he's been allowed to spend, and I think instead of people on Twitter blaming all this on Cashman if they don't get these guys, it's not really his fault. So he said back off.
And then I see a lot of people just blaming ownership, and you can blame ownership all you want. They're still part of your team.
I think we can both agree that if George was alive, though, then these guys would both be Yankees already, right?
Oh, absolutely, because he would have gone out and he would have been like, forget it, I'm going to give Harper this $400 million contract that Boris seemed to think that he could get.
Yeah.
And being a fan, you stick by your team no matter what. You can be upset with the moves they make. You can be upset that they don't win. But if you decided, hey, I don't like what they're doing, I'm going to leave. We're not going to miss you. We're not going to miss you as a fan. No. In fact, fine, leave. Don't be a fan anymore. Get rid of that negativity, because really you got to look at this as like, well, they're doing the best they can with the resources that they have. They're trying to put the best team out there, and it's not like they're getting crappy players to play for the Yankees. They're still getting good players. It's just not the player that fits your narrative, and that's the problem. So I stand by the moves that Cashman makes. I want to believe that he's putting a good team out there, because they are a good team. They are coming off a 100-win season, and any other year they probably win the World Series. But the fact that Boston had some sick, ridiculous season, and Houston won 103 games, they just drew the short straw this year. Doesn't mean that everyone on Boston had a career year last year. J.D. Martinez, Mookie Betts, they were fantastic. And, if they can repeat that, good for them. But the odds aren't really in their favor of replicating that. So I would think that because the Yankees had an injured Sanchez, they missed out on Aaron Judge for 7 weeks. Stanton wasn't completely adjusted to the American League. Then you never know. Greg Burke could surprise everybody in the world and have the season that everybody expected them to have, even Luke Voigt. The Yankees really did kind of have an off year last year, and they still won 100 games.
They still won 100 games, yeah.
So
it's pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, if everyone played up to their potential, they could probably win 115, 120 games.
This year, they're actually, on paper, they're better than they were last year.
I agree.
If you ask me.
I agree. They've improved.
Even with the team they have now, yep.
Mm-hmm. So with that said, that should kind of cover everything we really want to talk about. I know there are some other things, but we're kind of running a little bit long here.
It's good.
We definitely can talk about it next time. But I want to just say thank you everybody for listening. And before we sign off, let's just put in a guess on where Machado and Harper actually do sign.
Okay.
So where do you think Machado goes?
I'm going to say Machado ends up a Philly, and Harper, I'd say a National.
Okay. I kind of agree with that. I agree with those.
And the White Sox are doing everything they can. White Sox are bringing in all the friends in the world that Machado wants to play with.
Right.
It's just,
So you say Philly, I will say Chicago. I say if he does not sign with the Yankees, he goes to the White Sox, which it looks like that he will not be signing with the Yankees. And Harper, I figured he would go back to the Nationals just because that's where he's comfortable. So I will say White Sox and Nationals for Machado and Harper, respectively.
And there's always a chance that Harper goes out to L.A. L.A. could be doing the same thing as Cashman doing, just waiting for the market to calm down. Because they did clear a lot of space.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And anything can still happen, like we've been saying this whole episode. A month left in the offseason. The Yankees can still make some trades and some moves and can end up with one of these guys or both. You don't know. But, just be patient. Whatever happens is going to happen, and you're just going to have to live with it.
I mean, don't forget, right now, GMs are pretty tied up with arbitration right now. Arbitration is always the first couple weeks of January, so I think things now that we're past January 1st, I think things won't happen till more towards February, anyways. If I had to guess.
That's probably a safe assumption. So, maybe next time we can talk more about how the offseason as a whole was handled, what things they can improve on for next offseason, the winter meetings. Because I just to throw it out there, winter meetings was a big disappointment for me. And we can talk about that another time. But I think this went really well. Hopefully we get some viewers off of this. If not, we'll try again.
If anybody watches this, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoy the insight. We'll, I think as we get going more and more of these, we'll get more comfortable. We'll be more fun, and but we're just starting out, so stick with it.
So again, my name's Greg, and check out our blog. Brad writes for the blog occasionally. He will hopefully write a little bit more this year. Life gets in the way. This is not our day job, so don't hold us to writing. Not yet. So don't hold us to doing this all the time. But we do it when we can, and we really enjoy the game, and we really love the Yankees. And so check us out. The Pinstripe Chronicle is the blog. You can find us again on Facebook. Just search Pinstripe Chronicle. Same with Instagram and Twitter. I'll be on Twitter most of the time. And check out Brad. Go ahead, Brad.
Yep, Brad or Chatter1 on Twitter, and that's about it. And then look for any articles I write for the Chronicle if I get around to it. I have a young child in the house, so time is at a premium.
He's a dad now, which Jackson's the man. So, anyways, please leave some feedback if you get a chance. If you do manage to sit through this whole episode, look for us on social media. We love the feedback. We're still working out all the kinks. We'll do the best we can. But again, it was a pleasure. Brad, good talking to you. And
as always.
And we'll hopefully do this again very soon. Thanks for joining us on Yankee Chatter.
Yeah, go Yanks.
Go Yanks.